This program is partially supported by a grant from the Illinois Arts Council Agency, a state agency, the National Endowment for the Arts. By the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and by viewers like you. Thank you. Hi, I'm Becky Cramblit. Welcome to this edition of State of the Arts. Artistic inspiration can be found in some unusual places, and today we found it nestled off of a back road just outside of Macomb. Matt and Kat Myers are both artists. Matt is a blacksmith and finds his inspiration in this beautiful, quiet setting. Kat is a metalsmith and a jeweler, and she finds her inspiration with things that entertain, and she also finds her inspiration with frogs. You'll want to stay tuned for that. But we'll start first with Matt.
I started working with metal. I got my degree in metalsmithing and jewelry making, and I just worked really small. I did jewelry and things like that, and I wanted to make some of my own hammers, so I built a small forge to just experiment and learn how to make hammers. And I never actually ended up making those hammers because once I started working with hot metal, I was just like, oh, this is it. This is the thing.
Hot metal is your thing.
It's, yeah, it was very addictive.
That's funny.
It's completely different from working with gold and silver and stuff.
So in a nutshell, you make sculptures out of metal.
Yep.
And are these pieces of scrap metal? How do you come by the metal?
I get almost all of my metal from scrap yards. Sometimes I buy new metal if it's for a commission and it's just going to be easier or more economical. Sometimes it's just better to use fresh stock than to have to put a bunch of small pieces together.
Okay, and how do you get your business? I mean, how do you find people who want you to make something?
A lot of my business is word of mouth. All my local business is all word of mouth. And then I get national and international business from online sites. Got a couple of different websites. I got my own website and then another one called Custom Made that takes commission, but they help get more work and stuff.
All right. Now, I know you've got a couple of sculptures out here that are supposed to be going to Dallas, so that was obviously some online business that you received.
They just happened upon my website doing a web search and contacted me about some of the smaller ones, asking if they could buy those. And I was like, sure, yeah, happily. And then they wanted a picture of somebody standing next to them and went, oh, those are way too small.
Yeah.
Happy to make bigger ones.
Absolutely. And how do you then get them? I mean, how tall are they?
They're between 17 and 18 feet, the two of them.
So how do you ship something like that to Texas?
They're going to have to lay on their sides and build racks for them to lay on to support them, so none of the welds crack or anything, and load them on a semi, as far as I know.
Talk about the process a little bit for me. You get the metal, and what happens from there?
Well, heat it up and hit it. Yeah, it's pretty.
Well, now that's simplified.
It's very simple, but it's not as simple as it sounds. Right. You know, it's as simple as you make it hot, and when iron or steel is hot, it becomes more fluid, and ideally you know, if you could grab it with your hands, you could just bend it around.
But it's too hot.
It's too hot, so you hold it with tongs or whatever, and then use the hammer, the power hammer, or just a regular hammer, and the anvil, and depending on the angle of the hammer and which way you're holding the metal, you control the shapes that you can get.
How long of a period of time do you have before the metal starts to harden?
It depends on the size. You know, the smaller the piece of metal, the quicker it cools down. Okay. And so if you're working on a real small piece, you may just have 30 seconds.
Oh, wow.
But then, if you get a real big chunk of metal hot, it stays hot longer and it moves easier.
So you have to reheat it if it cools.
You just keep going back to the fire and back and forth. That's why you'll see the forge has to have an open area around it, so you can take the different pieces and move them around.
What's interesting to me is some of these pieces look like they're so soft. The movement of them looks like fabric, like the woman wearing a dress. and it's amazing that you can get that kind of a look with a hammer.
That's
Is it
the goal.
difficult to do?
It's difficult in that it took a while for me to learn how, and just,
Sure.
It's like drawing. People ask, is it difficult? Well, no, because I've been doing it since I was a kid. It's easy for me to draw, It's
Right.
easy for me to do that now, but learning how is, got a lot of scars and
So it can be dangerous work sometimes.
not sometimes, all the times. It's
All the
always dangerous. I mean,
Yeah.
anytime you look at stuff online where they're talking about blacksmithing, there's always a disclaimer that this is dangerous. You will get hurt. It's not a matter of if you're going to get hurt. You will get burned. You will have blisters. If you don't break something, you're lucky.
Rough business.
Yeah, sometimes it can be. Yeah.
Talk a little bit about this piece here. This is a horse that's he's in progress.
Yeah, this
It's
is
not quite finished. And you made him from just scrap that was lying around, right?
Yeah, these are all just bits and pieces from other sculptures that I've been working on, and once the piece gets to a certain size, it's just too small for me to mess with. I throw it in a bucket, and I had all these buckets full of little tiny pieces that I was going to take to the scrapyard, but quite honestly just didn't want to lift the buckets into the back of the truck, so I tipped them over and started welding them together.
That's funny. So what will he look like ultimately when you're finished?
Bigger, taller.
Probably full scale.
Yeah,
For the most part.
close to it, hopefully, and much more dense. I just want to keep adding to it
So you can't
until
see
it's
through him
solid. Yeah, so you
eventually.
can't see
Yeah.
through. And I'm thinking about something on top of him because yesterday I saw my chickens were out here standing on it, and I really liked that.
You're going to put a chicken
I was
on
thinking
it.
about making a row of chickens or something standing on top of him, but that may not happen.
So is that how you get your inspiration? Just you see something and go, I could do that.
Yeah, when I started making birds, that's exactly how. I mean, I had wanted to make a bird, and I made it out of clay, and I was going to do a bronze cast of it and stuff, and I just came out of the shop one morning. I can make a bird, and so I did. I'd love to do more of these large figurative works, and I want to do a series of larger animals and things. A lot of that's just a matter of funding. I quite honestly just can't afford to do everything I want to.
Right.
I want to do more stone carving because I love carving stone and putting the stone and metal together. There's some of my stonework over there, and it's just, I've got a lot of ideas. I'm just not time and money.
You're set out here in the middle of nowhere. You're completely secluded, surrounded by trees and nature, and I'm sure that environment, along with all the critters, the cats, the dogs, the chickens, lend itself well to the idea process.
Yeah. That's I wouldn't know what to do without all the critters.
Right.
They're both my companions and my models half the time, so they keep me grounded.
Matt, the finish on those really large statues that you made is real shiny. How do you get that on there?
It's a mixture of linseed oil and beeswax that I make from. I raise the bees, and one of the byproducts is the extra wax, and so I mix that, melt it down, and it's actually burned onto the metal. You heat up the metal and paint it on, and it's a big smoky, horrible mess, but it makes a really nice, durable finish.
And that holds up to weather and...
Yeah, so far on those out there have been out for a year now. 2 winters they've been outside, and they need a little touch up, but those particular sculptures are going to Texas, so they'll do fine there. It's drier and warmer.
Well, I would have never guessed that raising bees was part of metal smithing. Is that a difficult chore to raise the bees?
No, not at all. I do very little with them. I'm by no means a bee expert. I have a friend who helps me out. He comes over, and I'm a little more nervous with them. I'm actually allergic to it. So when I get stung, last time they got me right on the eye, and I had a, kind of like the Elephant Man for a couple days. But yeah, he'll come over and help me with things that are, if I don't know what's going on. Because like every 3 weeks they'll hatch a new brood, and they'll make. So you'll come out here and there's just a huge swarm of bees all over in front of the hive. And the first time I saw that, I thought they were swarming and they were leaving, because that's what they do. They make a big. And so I called him up, like, man, my bees are leaving. What am I supposed to do? It's like, no, they just hatched a bunch of babies. It's okay, because they all come out at once when they get to a certain age, and that's their first flight. They all go out at once, and then it's just this big crazy mess for like 3 minutes, and then they're gone.
Wow. So you've learned a certain amount about bee care.
Yeah,
having to do this.
I'm obsessive by nature. It helps when you're an artist, and so I get into whatever I'm working on, or whatever I'm, whether it's bees or chickens, or a swimming pool, whatever. It's I have a tendency to over focus on it at the time and learn all I can.
When it comes to jewelry, we all have our own unique style. We wanted to say something about us, but does it entertain? Kat Myers, who is a metalsmith, jeweler, and jewelry instructor at WIU, has a unique line of jewelry that she's created that will surprise you. Take a look. Kat, tell me about yourself, how you ended up working with metal and jewelry.
It actually was kind of an accident. I originally went to school for graphic design. I've always been into the arts. That's ever since I was a little kid. But after I finished my degree in graphic design, I took a metals class over the summer and fell in love. So I've been doing it ever since. Yeah.
According to Kat, her students aren't necessarily art majors, but have an interest in the arts. You might think it is mostly girls that sign up for her class, but interestingly enough, guys enjoy learning about metalsmithing as well. Of particular interest to Kat when it comes to jewelry making are games and movement. She showed us some unique pieces in her play series. Well, show me some of these pieces, because they are fun and they're very tactile and interesting, because I've never seen jewelry that sort of had a purpose like that could entertain you, I guess is a good way to put it.
That's what they're supposed to do.
And this has like little balls in it, right?
Yeah, there's
in these chambers, separate chambers?
There's 3 different chambers in it, and they all spin independently. And there's a hole that will go from one to the other as you spin it. And it's just kind of for people who don't sit still well, because I don't.
I think a lot will relate to this piece of jewelry.
Yeah, this is good for meetings that aren't necessarily extremely quiet, because you can hear the noise that it makes.
And the object is to get all the balls maybe down into one chamber, is that?
Yeah.
Or does it really have an object?
No, there's not really an object to it other than entertainment and just kind of the fun noises and the tactile sensations that come from the bars.
It's very interesting. And I would think that from a standpoint of just making this is a lot of detailed work to get all these little bars in here.
Yeah, detail is my friend. There's a lot of preciseness to them. In order to make things move, there has to be a lot of excuse me, attention to detail. So if they don't fit well, then they aren't going to move correctly. They aren't going to have like a smooth motion to them. So
show me some more. These are wonderful.
This is a little desk piece. Most of these are either based on children's toys or also like pet toys.
Right.
This is something that I found in the candy section.
Well, it's interesting how these little balls you chose to make, just a few of them colors and the rest of them are silver.
Yeah, there's actually brass, steel, and a synthetic ruby in there.
Really?
Yeah.
Very interesting.
So, but they all make a different noise when they go down, so it makes it more interesting to have the different materials and the different colors in there.
Very well thought out. Yeah. What is this piece here?
They're little exercise balls for your hands.
They rattle.
They rattle, yes. And ball bearings was another theme of mine. They work well with the movement. And so these are kind of the relaxation, hand massage.
And this is a piece that you would probably put on your desk or in the office or something like that?
Yeah, again, on a boring phone call. Or this actually would be good for a meeting because you can just kind of sit there. And
fairly quiet. You can pull that off.
Yeah, and if you work them in different ways, you can also get different noises or less noise if they do. This is a top. It also rattles, so it can be.
Right.
It's kind of works as a children's rattle as well.
Well, I would imagine that you had to give a certain degree of thought to the balance of this piece in order to make it do that. I mean, you just can't dream it up and put it together and it happens, right? Oh, maybe it does. I don't know.
It did in this case, but again, I'm very detail-oriented, so making sure that everything is centered and straight and put together correctly, that allows it to just kind of happen.
Interesting.
So, yeah, it'll spin for a long time, but this is also wearable as well. It has a little
it goes into a necklace.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is the ultimate in entertainment.
Yeah, so it
just screws into the necklace?
Yeah, it has what's called a bayonet clasp, which has two little pegs.
All right.
Which slide into some slots and twist and then lock. So, I mean, you could do anything. No, you're not going to lose it.
It's a really neat looking piece, beyond its entertainment value.
Hopefully that's the case with them.
Absolutely.
Rings, I love, again, pans. This is one that is based on a ball and cup game.
Yeah.
And it is actually hard to do. I've only done it a couple times.
If the maker can't do it.
She has.
So you just screwed that in so that the ball won't come out if you're wearing it and not playing with it.
Yeah, if you don't want to actually have the, I guess, the game out.
Right.
It will still move a little bit.
Yeah.
It gets pretty tight, but
rattles
then if you want to play with it, you just kind of unscrew it, if I can remember which way that works.
It's fascinating to me how you've dreamed up these designs, and then, I mean, it's one thing to go, oh, it would be great to have a ring that was a ball and cup, but then you have to figure out how to make that happen.
Yeah.
Did she get it? Oh! Here. Oh, this is my favorite. Talk about this one. I really like this one.
Again, it's dealing with the motion and the noise, because this is a little either fan or propeller, depending on who you are. I've had it described as both. And then with wind, it will spin.
That's awesome.
I have earrings that do the same thing as well, which are kind of fun for people with short hair.
You could take flight if you had it all on. And just...
Yeah, I keep telling my husband I need to wear this on a motorcycle ride just to see what happens. Yeah.
That's great.
Because I think that would be fun.
And then you have some other pieces here too. This is just a noisemaker of sorts.
I call this a pocket piece. This is based on a cat toy because it's got balls that go around the outside.
The outside edge. That's very neat.
And there's a cat toy that they bat
one
side of it.
Yeah.
And so this does the same thing for people. It's kind of like a worry stone where you can rub, but if you get really fidgety like I do.
I keep you entertained for hours.
It did, actually. One of the best things was when somebody came into my studio and picked up the piece, and they kept flipping it over. And they couldn't figure out what was making the noise.
Because the balls disappear when you flip it over to the other side. Yeah.
Yeah, and I eventually took pity and explained to them what was going on. Yeah, and this is a simpler version of that. Really, it's
And in necklace form as opposed to, yeah.
A necklace form. It kind of reminds me of the dog collar noise.
It is, you're right.
It's so a little bit of a
Yeah.
cat bell.
Yeah.
One of the more recent versions, or play pieces is what I call them, is this piece, which is a spin the bottle ring.
This is awesome.
Which you can wear on a date. And then when you get to the end of the date, if you're not quite sure,
Right.
you can
You
spin the bottle.
And there are little words here. Let's see what they say. Well, let's leave that one off. Spin again. Just a peck. On the lips. No way. So that would
So-
determine how the date's going to end if you're not sure.
Yes.
And then what happens?
And then if you need it, you can open it up and grab yourself a mint. So if it is on the
If it's-
lips,
yeah,
or
on the lips.
yeah,
That's great. That's awesome.
you can grab one of those.
I am so
So-
entertained by all this.
It's
Now, we referenced frogs earlier and your affinity to frogs, and these are some examples of some of those, and they're really quite beautiful. Why don't you talk about these?
this is a series of more plant-based pieces, and these are hair sticks, where you would wrap your hair up into a bun, and then these can be worn towards the back. And they are a little bit heavier than probably some of the things that people wear, but
They're not heavy enough that they would, feel uncomfortable, though.
No.
When you pick them up, they're not that
I've
heavy.
worn them, so I know that
You're right.
I know that it is
They're okay.
doable. And I started playing with color with these pieces as well.
Right, yeah, I love the color. Now, how do you get the color on the metal?
These are patinas, so they're a chemical that you can put on the
Okay.
surface of the metal that leaves a coloration. And some of them are more chemical based, and actually some of them are more pigment based. And then these have been sealed, so they have a good finish to them, so they won't like scratch.
Right, chip
mean,
and
you-
wear off. And
You can scratch them, but
right.
it would take some effort.
Now, do you have some projects that are sort of on your bucket list that you haven't quite attempted yet, but you're looking forward to diving into?
Yeah, I actually want to work on more of a vessel piece with the frogs, and take a step away from the body a little bit.
Right.
I do enjoy raising as well.
What's raising?
Raising is taking a flat sheet, usually circular. It can be kind of off-shaped, I guess. And then you'll hammer it with a steel hammer on what's called a steel stake. It's a steel form. And the softer metal will give. And so you use several rounds of hammering or several times of hammering to bring you basically raise the angle to what you're after, which is where raising comes from. So
Sounds very time consuming.
yes,
So,
it is.
like a piece like this, how long would it take you from start to finish?
Oh, I know I spent several weeks on that.
Wow.
This piece was done from sheet, from a thin sheet, and each of the little spikes, this is based on a fan palm, and each of these spikes were formed and then shaped so that they could be soldered together with a good connection before they were again shaped to fit to the,
Wow. Plus, you
To
made
the
this little
comb.
frog.
yeah.
I
He's
mean, he's tiny and detailed.
He starts off in wax, and then he's done with a process called lost wax casting. So you take a wax and connect it with basically like wax wire to a base, invest it or surround it with heat-resistant plaster, and then put it in a kiln, burn the wax away, and then basically force metal into that void.
Again, very tedious. That's amazing.
That would be metalsmithing, actually.
As you can see, metalsmithing can result in a number of unique pieces. We hope that you have enjoyed what you've seen on State of the Arts today. That's all we have time for, but we would like to thank Matt and Kat Myers for their hospitality and letting us into their home and their studio to see their work. For all of us, I'm Becky Cramblit. Thanks for watching. This program is partially supported by a grant from the Illinois Arts Council Agency, a state agency. The National Endowment for the Arts. By the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. And by viewers like you. Thank you.